There is only one thing I'm searching for: happiness. Wow, that is the most human thing we've heard from Ainz in a while. Overlord Season 4, Episode 10, The Last King, is pretty much an episode that is the calm before the storm. Hell, it even sets up why the storm is gonna be bad, but we'll get into that more a bit later. So the episode starts immediately where we left off, where our predictions were pretty much on point. Ainz was thoroughly surprised with that Gundam showing up in the previous episode ending, and we do get confirmation that that suit is from the Yggdrasil world, the world where Ainz was playing in as an MMO player. Not much else is said regarding what that suit is about or how powerful it may actually be, since Ainz's passive ability to calm his emotions kicked in, so I'm guessing that reveal will be saved for a later date. And of course, the Floor Guardian simply sees this as Ainz's genius level planning coming into fruition, which technically isn't wrong. If you look back to episode 6 of this season, Ainz was teaching Shaltir how he would approach a fight, where instead of going in full force and showing all your skills, you instead hold back a little and instead throw in some low-level troops or mobs in order for the other opposing team to show their strengths and for you to gather information. That is exactly what occurred here. Another great information we gathered from this episode is that we can now confirm that there are very high-level players capable of one-shotting Death Knights. Death Knights who are feared because of their ability to raise entire cities with their brute strength alone. And of course, Ainz can't simply raise this town now just because he has this information on the enemy. He still has his promise to Nigredo and Pistonia to allow some people a chance at escaping. So he diverts the conversation with the Floor Guardians to, instead of raising the entire town, decimating them, to instead going to the royal capital and bringing them to ruin immediately, instead of slowly getting to them by taking out the cities and towns first. Now on to the next scene. We catch up with Prince Zanak, who is currently buried in a pile of work in his office. Princess Renner comes to visit him and asks if their father is still alive. And this is because his father has been confined by the hands of his own son, Prince Zanak. But this isn't because of some nefarious coup or something. It is simply because Prince Zanak is actually a very capable king, and the heads of the military and some of the nobles are siding with him. They believe it is in their best interest to fight instead of trying to negotiate with the Sorcerer Kingdom, which is technically correct, since Ainz and his Floor Guardians have no reason to allow them to surrender or escape because of the whole carrot and stick plan. Princess Renner asks if their father is still alive, and of course Prince Zanak is just keeping him detained in his room for his own safety. Now the princess and the prince discuss what we already knew, which is that from the day the war was declared, the Sorcerer Kingdom did not immediately go to the Royal Kingdom, but instead went through the towns and cities that were their supply roads in the mountains. This is basically the episode telling us that the royal family understands their full situation now, and that they have no backup to rely on, nor supply roads or escape routes they can use. Not only because those routes were destroyed, but also with the realization that the only way the Sorcerer Kingdom can go through those routes and destroy them so covertly was because the nobles in their own kingdoms were working with them. Most particularly, the noble that Prince Zanak was very fond of, Marquis Raven, whose domain encompassed all those supply routes. With a full understanding that they are being attacked from the outside as well as the inside, they have no choice but to fully commit to this war, even if they know that the Sorcerer's Kingdom's military forces far exceeds their capabilities. Prince Zanak will have to rely on the cruelty that the Sorcerer Kingdom did on the towns and cities in order to rally the troops and make them believe that they have a fighting chance. Of course, Prince Zanak is fairly smart and he knows that they do not, and he half-jokingly tells his sister, Princess Renner, to escape when the moment arises. Princess Renner faintly grins, as of course we know she is in on the Sorcerer Kingdom's plans. A fairly straightforward exposition scene on where the current royal family stands. Now on to the next scene. we catch up with the Blue Roses who are going through town to get a contract. Lacus, the leader of Blue Rose and Loki Chunibyu, says that they are only there to see the contents of this request and that she can do it on her own and they all can relax. And of course, Evil Eye and the rest of Blue Rose are suspicious on why she wants to do this alone. Apparently, the leader of Vermilion Drop, aka Red Drop, aka Drop of Red, or however the translations want to call them. I personally prefer Vermilion Drop, that sounds hella awesome. Anyways, the leader of Vermilion Drop, namely Mr. Azuth, is actually Lacus's uncle. And she has some reservations on introducing that guy to her friends. But since Mr. Azuth is known as a legendary hero sort of, the Blue Rose group wants to meet him as well, even if just once. Fast forward a bit, and the Blue Rose group finally meets Mr. Azuth, who is basically half naked with two adult entertainers on his side. After being thoroughly disappointed on his personality, Evil Eye uses her charm spell to get rid of the two adult entertainers, so they can discuss the contents of their quest. And this is where we get the most interesting part of the episode. Blue Rose immediately senses something ominous and turns to the door. You would think they sent something like Conqueror's Haki with just how hostile and ready for combat they were. But the door opens and we are finally introduced to the rest of Black Scripture. Well, at least 4 of them. The first one, that looks like Clementine from previous season, is called One Man Army, the 5th seat of Black Scripture. The blue-haired witch is the 11th seat, and the brute with the giant axe is the 10th seat, known only as the strongest human. Oh, and the ninja is the 12th seat of Black Scripture, known only as Heaven and Earth. Now, you can say whatever you want with Overlord, but you have to admit, it's very good at keeping the lore a mystery and keeping you enthralled with knowing more of the world, as well as those beautiful light novel art. I mean, just look at the designs of Black Scripture in the light novel. The way they're drawn and colored is very reminiscent of those Renaissance type paintings about Revelations, with their deep contrasted blacks and their ominous dark depictions. And the anime did a fantastic job staying true to the source material with their designs and how they behaved. Now back to the scene. With the leader of Vermilion Drop, Mr. Azuth, the Blue Rose, and Black Scripture there, the contract is revealed to be none other than aiding the kingdom in defeating Ainz Ul Gon. Blue Rose, being an adventurer group, not a mercenary group, refuses this contract. Black Scripture acknowledges this politely, and they leave as fast as they were introduced. Mr. Azuth, the leader of Vermilion Drop, that although he will not be joining Black Scripture in defending the kingdom, he will be sticking around. His motives still unknown to us and Blue Rose. Very interesting scene. I'm willing to bet Mr. Azuth is that Gundam we saw in the previous episode, seeing how he was very confident on his ability to escape. But overall, I feel like there was a lot of cut content here. I wish we knew more about Black Scripture and or what Blue Rose's plans were other than defending some of the people in the kingdom when the inevitable massacre occurs. Now on to the final scene. We are now in the open fields, ready for the war between the kingdom and Ainz Ul Gon. Prince Zanak rides out first and declares an intent to meet with Ainz before the war officially begins. Ainz agrees, and do note, this will be the first time Ainz and Prince Zanak first meet. Ainz, with his magic, sets up a long table and chairs and some water for Prince Zanak, much to the surprise of the prince. The prince then proceeds to ask why Ainz is doing something so cruel, why he would not accept their plea of surrender. A reasonable question, if I may add. Ainz simply replies to him his carrot and stick plan, and how the kingdom will be used as an example on the foolishness of opposing the Sorcerer Kingdom, and that he will ensure that the kingdom stays a rubble for the next 100 or even thousands of years, so that all may know this lesson throughout eternity. The prince rebuts that there are surely other ways the prestige of Ainz Ul Gon could be known throughout the world. To the prince, this seems like a close-minded plan, and he continues to ask Ainz, "What is your goal?" Ainz takes a breath and says,
何を狙っているのか。求めているものはたった一つ。 幸せだ。
幸せ
Yes, happiness. That is his goal. Remember, Ainz is still looking for other players in this world, particularly players from his own group. But he isn't blind to the fact that there may not be other players in this world. He may not say it out loud, but he acknowledges this scenario. So, when it comes down to the root of it all, when it comes to brass tacks, Ainz is simply looking for the happiness of his friends, namely the Floor Guardians of Nazarick, the creations of his beloved friends in the guild of Ainz Ul Gon. Isn't happiness the goal of all creatures in the end? Much to the shock of the prince, he quickly replies, "Is that really worth taking away other people's happiness?" And Ainz, without a moment's hesitation, replies, "Of course, isn't that obvious? If it is for the people you would love, you would do anything." And doesn't that ring true to the kingdom itself? If they had the opportunity to take advantage of another nation in order to benefit their own, would they not take that opportunity? Is it not their responsibility to progress their own kingdom? Would the prince be willing to tell his own people to give up on their own happiness? The prince vehemently replies that logic is too extreme and smashes the table. But he quickly apologizes. And of course, Ainz understands his emotions. And he simply tells him that yes, there may possibly be other ways to go about this. But if the opportunity to achieve happiness is there and so easily available, it might be best to take a hold of it immediately. And Ainz quotes, "The goddess of fortune is beautiful, but is bold behind." An old Roman saying. Prince Zanak pauses, understands, and simply lightheartedly comments that what a strange goddess you have. And also apologizes, saying he does not mean to belittle any belief or gods he, Ainz, may have. Continuing his streak of politeness towards Ainz, even though they are of different kingdoms, races, and such. A truly impressive show of honorable behavior between Ainz and the prince. They continue to take turns with their questions, and once they are satisfied, they finally depart in what is an incredibly amicable relationship between two opposing parties. Even Ainz is left impressed and states that this is what true royalty must be like. Wow, even I'm impressed at how Prince Zanak turned out. I really thought he was just gonna be another scummy, politically inclined individual in the royal family. But nope, he's pretty honest, practical, and polite. And I truly have great respect for that kind of character development for him. And Prince Zanak in turn respects the commitment Ainz showed in their conversation, and how surprisingly human his goals are. Prince Zanak returns to his camp with all his soldiers terrified of what is to come. Now, not knowing that surrender is clearly not on the table, they forcibly take the prince and his commander otherwise. Thinking that this act might save their own lives, they proceed to enter Ainz's tent and offer the prince's head in exchange for their own. Ainz opens the bag, closes it, gives it to Albedo, and tells her to bury it respectfully. And he lightheartedly tells the traitors that he accepts their surrender and tells Albedo to lead them to the Neuronist, who will happily accept them in Nazarick. To recall, the Neuronist is the green blob thing who is the special intelligence investigator / torturer of Nazarick. And as those traitors were being led away to the Neuronist, Ainz tells Mare to remind the Neuronist not to kill them until they beg for it, and even then, to take her time with it. Ainz has now fully lost interest in this kingdom and their behavior, and tells Cocytus and Mare to take command of this war, and gives them full authority to use all their strength, and declares not a single one shall live. Alright, another banger episode. Quite similar to the previous episode we had, where a lot of build-up and tension was made, but with less crazy Gundam, which I totally dig and respect. I love their encounter with Prince Zanak. That was so unexpected but also very melancholic. And it really shows that although Ainz is super powerful and has learned a lot from being a king, his goals are incredibly human. It's very simple. Hell, it's even a little bit short-sighted. But that comes with being human, where you can only really predict or ensure the safety of the things close to you, and nothing more, which is way more relatable than being just an overpowered protagonist that decimates fully flat characters on the side. So again, mad props to everyone in the cast, especially Prince Zanak with how he carried the conversations, both with Princess Renner and Ainz. A truly tragic ending for such a good character, but I respect how his dignified presence and tragic fall now pushes Ainz to proceed with his brutal plan. So, what are your thoughts on this episode? Leave your thoughts and comments down below. I'll reply to them as much as I can. Like and subscribe if you want to hang out more, and I'll see you all on the next one.